These are the examples for Algebra 1A, Credit 4, and we're in Lesson 9.4. Lesson 9.4, we're going to be talking a little more about standard deviation. And what we're looking at here is something called the standard normal curve. And we're going to have to fill in some information on this just down here. And then once we have that filled in to answer our questions, it's going to actually go pretty quick and hopefully pretty simple. So just to kind of go over this before we get into the examples, in our standard normal curve, notice down here we have this x with this little bar on top of it, and that represents our mean. In fact, we're going to even write that in here to remind us of that. And then these little circles with the tail on them, that's the symbol for standard deviation. I believe that's the lowercase Greek letter sigma, but at any rate, it represents standard deviation. So this is 1, 2, and then 3 standard deviations above the mean or more than the mean. And then the minuses indicate 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations below the mean. Something that's worth pointing out here, within 1 standard deviation of the mean, notice we have these 34% here, 34 plus 34, 68% or about 2/3 of our data falls within 1 standard deviation of the mean. If you go out to 2 standard deviations, if we add all these percentages up here, we get about 95%. So 95% of your data falls within 2 standard deviations of the mean. And then we go out to 3 standard deviations, that's nearly everything. And then we allow for outliers, that's that 0.15%, both that's less than 3 standard deviations or more than 3 standard deviations above the mean to account for any possible outliers. Because in any data set, even if the numbers are all, say, for example, in the 30s or 40s, you could have a data set number, maybe depending on what you're surveying or gathering data on, that's very much higher, say in the hundreds or even very much lower. And so that's accounts for that. All right, so let's jump into the examples. Let's go ahead and read the problem, and then we'll give the numbers that we're going to be using. It says the number of songs enjoyed from Aesop Rock for all Learn for Life students is normally distributed with a mean of 5 songs and a standard deviation of 2 songs. Draw a bell curve to help you answer these questions. So this is our standard normal curve, also known as a bell curve. And so let's take a look here. So for our example, our mean is going to be 8, and our standard deviation is going to be 3. All right, so in fact, we're going to put this in a different color just to show that we've entered these numbers. So our mean, so it goes right here in the middle, that's our mean. And then going above the mean, each standard deviation, we're going to add 3. So 8 plus 3 is 11. 11 plus 3 is 14. And then 14 plus 3 is 17. And again, adding 3 because the standard deviation here is 3. So likewise, going below the mean, we're going to be subtracting 3. So 8 minus 3 gives us 5. 5 minus 3 gives us 2. And then 2 minus 3 brings us to -1. So not a meaningful number for this problem, but still it'll serve to give the example on how we find the answers to the problems in this lesson. All right, so first question is, what is the probability that a student likes more than 7 songs? In our example, we're going to be doing more than 14. So what's the probability that a student likes more than 14 songs? And so all we do here is we find 14 from those numbers we just entered. And just to kind of emphasize this, here's a line, here's the edge of the ruler will represent that line. And then now we have to figure out, well, more, is that to the left or to the right? Well, when we deal with the number line, or we can even see with the pluses here, more is going to always be to the right. And so we're just going to add up the percentages that are to the right, which is the 2.35 and the 0.15. And so we're going to go ahead and add those up, 2.35 and 0.15. And we add those up and we find that that would be 2.5. So the probability that there's a student likes more than 14 songs would be only 2.5%. So this would be someone that's probably a pretty big fan of that group. And so only 2.5% chance that a student likes that many songs. All right, what about an example for number 2, a probability that a student likes less than 8 songs? And so once again, we're going to find the line for, in this case, 8. So here's 8 right here. Less than is going to be to the left. So we're going to add up all the percentages that are to the left, starting with the 0.15. So we have 0.15, 2.35. And again, not much work to show, but make sure you're showing your work. And then finally, 13.5 and then 34. And if we add all those up, let's see, we already know from the last problem, adding these up is 2.5. 2.5 plus 13.5 is 16, and 16 plus 34 gives us 50%. So a 50% chance that a student likes fewer than 8 songs. And that kind of makes sense because the mean is the middle. And not only kind, it really does make sense. And we would expect half the data to be below the mean. And so half would be 50%. All right, so that's examples for 1 and 2. Now let's take a look at some examples for problems 3 and 4. And here we go. For number 3, the question is, what is the probability an individual likes? And for our example, we're going to say between 5 and 14 songs. So between 5 and 14 songs from this group. So when we're doing a between, we need to locate both lines, the 5 line and the 14 line. So here's 5, here's 14, and we're going to add up all the percentages that are in between. So that would be the 34, the 34, and the 13.5. So we're going to have 34, and then another 34, and then 13.5. And so we can see that here. So 34 plus 34 is 68, and then 68 plus 13.5 would be 81.5%. So most of our data is in that range, or a good chunk of our data, in fact, way more than most of it, 81.5% between 5 and 14. And then just for a little more practice, we'll do another between problem for number 4, although if you understand example for number 3, number 4 is really the same principle. It's between 2 and 17 songs. And so that just gives us a wider range here to add up. So 2 is all the way over here, 17 is all the way over here. So we're going to add up all these percentages in here that are between 2 and 17. So 13.5, 34, 34, another 13.5, and then 2.35. So let's go ahead and do that. 13.5, 34, 34, 13.5, and then that 2.35. And again, let's put the rulers up just to remind you what we did there. There's 2, there's 17, and there's all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 percentages that we added up. And so we add all that up down there. 34 and 34 is 68. 13.5 and 13.5 is 27. So 68 plus 27, that would bring us to 95. And then 95 plus 2.35 would bring us to 97.35%. And that would be our answer for our example for number 4, which again is very similar to what we did on number 3. Same principle between 2 numbers. All right, so that's it for the examples. In case you need to pause, we'll just stand out of the way there for a second. That's it for the examples for lesson 9.4. Again, pause, rewind the video, as we always say. Good luck with the work. And until the next video, take care and God bless.